might actually keep away some opportunities from you. So you have to ensure that you are yourself, and that will help people who matter to you attract or find you. Because let's assume you want to, you are interested in kung fu. Let's assume, for instance, you're interested in kung fu and you go to China and you now started wrestling. So how will people know you're interested in kung fu? So you just have to be your real self for people to actually, find you. So be humble enough to learn, or at least correct your mistakes. I usually have this problem back then, and I'll be like, I used to feel like, since I used to write a lot and I used to edit a lot of documents, I do feel like, I'm good with my CV. There's no need for anyone to actually review my CV, or I'll have this feeling that, oh, the essays I wrote is actually okay. So I don't usually give it out to people to review. So sometimes, like, people who actually are interested in my professional development will be like, Lukman, let me see your CV. Let me review your CV before you apply. Sometimes I'll even apply before even sending them my CV, because I don't want, I'm not, so open to, corrections. I do get scared of corrections until I, realize. But that didn't stop me from actually, whenever I submit these CVs to them, even though I've applied to that opportunity, whenever they give a correction, even though I don't take that correction at that point, I try to effect the correction in the next application I'll be making. And I kept on doing that until I got to a stage whereby I can at least say that my CV is up to, standard. So even though you're not humble enough to learn from people, like how I was in the past, you should be humble enough to correct your mistakes. You're not correcting it for them, you're correcting it for yourselves. So you should be humble enough to correct your mistake and learn to be independent. Next bullet point, learn to be independent. Yeah, you might be wondering, why did I say learn to be independent when I've said, reach out to people, ask them questions, ask them to help you review your CV. Sometimes you might encounter situations whereby you reach out to people and these people will be busy. And I have this problem with some of my, some people I know. Sometimes when they reach out to me, let's say, Lukman, I told them of this opportunity and I want them to apply. And I told them I'm going to put them through. And I'm busy myself because I'm still, trying to struggle to actually, get to where I want to be. So these people will reach out to me, Lukman, help me draft my CV. So sometimes I'll help you with your CV. They'll come back, Lukman, help me with my cover letter. I'll help them with the cover letter. They'll come back, Lukman, help me with the, sometimes I get busy. So when people are busy, sometimes you have to learn to be independent. Don't say because maybe this person has not responded to you yet, then you're going to keep on waiting for the person to respond to you. You might keep on reaching out to me and I might not respond to you. So will you just, say, I'm going to keep on waiting for him to, whenever this person responds to me and the application closes, before you actually take a step? No. Whenever you reach out to people, you've reached out to them like once, twice, thrice, or you've gotten to a stage whereby you've gotten tired of reaching out to them, try to make sure you take a step yourself. Don't 100% rely on people. Try to be independent. Have this, this cycle of being independent, so that you to be able to help you at some point whereby people are not responding to you. So you have to learn to be independent. And the reason why I put it there in bold, people are busy, because people are actually busy. People are busy, whether with something serious or something unserious, but people are usually busy. So take unpaid internships if you don't have alternatives. Sometimes when I recommend internships to people, they'll tell you that, oh, then go pay money, stuff like that, or how much did they pay, stuff like that, this type of questions. So they'll ask you questions like, are they going to pay you, or how much is the pay? And probably this person has never had an internship opportunity before. So I just want to say that whenever you are applying or you're approaching to opportunities, whenever you want to get opportunities, it doesn't have to be the money always. It doesn't have to be, making money always. Like this current opportunity I'm currently doing as a career, as a lead editor for career and business, I'm not being paid, but one thing I'm looking at is the potentials of the company. Yes, in the future, I might get paid. And also there are lots of people big, high-profile people who are, board members of these companies. It might be today, it might be tomorrow. Well, one day I might have the chance to get in touch with these people, and through getting in touch, I might be connected. Or maybe while working for them, one of them might have a company and might recommend me. So these are stuff you should look at. Don't just look at, oh, these people, I don't want to waste my time, especially when you don't have anything doing. You see some people who don't have anything doing literally, but they are very selective. So you have to be rational when making decisions. Don't just look at, and when I mean rational, it doesn't have to be money always. Don't just look at the monetary aspect, but also look at the benefits you might derive from that particular opportunity. And also, always be ready to challenge the normal, be objective and calculative. So this brings me to the point where I said I'm going to talk about how interacting with someone in World Bank, someone who has gone through my internship opportunity in the World Bank, before, how interacting with that person actually helped me even after getting the internship per se. So after getting the internship, I was trying to gather information on how, the whole process would be after getting my passport, before even getting my visa, after doing the background check and all of the documentations. I reached out to somebody on LinkedIn, and I asked her, how is the process? Because I know that I can't afford the flight tickets to America and I can't afford the accommodations. And, I was like, at some point, I was like, I got this opportunity, but I don't even know how I'm going to, sponsor myself. Because in the website, they didn't mention that, that opportunity will be, sponsored. They didn't mention that your airfares will be taken care of. So I was like, how am I going to get this opportunity? So that's another lesson to learn. Sometimes you just do things, even though you don't see the future, you don't know what might happen, just put in that effort. And, when the bridge comes, definitely you have the opportunity to cross it. You don't know where the opportunity might come from. So when I applied, maybe let's say the first thing I started, let's say people commenting, oh, this thing is really tough. People are really much, but you might not get it, but just give it a try. So even after getting it, I was still having this feeling that how am I going to pay my airfares? How am I going to, pay for my accommodation? Accommodation in America was really, really expensive. Just to put it in context, we were paying, I think, 900,000 per month, 900,000 naira in Nigeria equivalent per month for a room and a toilet. So that's how expensive accommodation was in America. But it's not really expensive if you are based there and if you're earning there like full time. So I was, confused on how to go about it. And I asked a previous intern, and she was like, as far as she was concerned, she paid for her, flight tickets herself. And she paid for her accommodation herself. And even from the mail they sent us, initially, they were like, we have provided you a list of, accommodation options you might want to choose from. So ensure that you either gather money with other interns, put money together and rent a place. And I was just reading the email and I was like, how will I do this? Like, like even though I'm to gather $500 should be around, let's say, 350,000. How am I going to afford this? Like, it was really like, let's say, a very confusing moment for me. And what I decided to do, as I always do, is to actually ask them, to challenge them, to be like, let's see, maybe these guys are actually humans. They are not robots. They've been sending me email, we've been communicating, so they can't be robots. So if they are humans, definitely they will get to understand whatever, problems or challenges I might be facing. So I send them a long mail. Habib and Khalid, if they are here, they'll be able to testify. Whenever I want to, reach out to some of these companies with a very serious issue, I usually send them a long mail and I make it really either professional, different tones of voice I can use in that mail. So I send them a really long mail telling them why I can't afford to pay for my flight tickets and also my accommodation. And my friend, the person Ibrahim, who we went to World Bank together, also did the same. And surprisingly, they got back to us telling us that they will cover for the flight tickets. And covering for the flight tickets was not enough because I needed money for the accommodation, and the money I've saved for the accommodation was not enough. So They said they are going to purchase the flight tickets for us, and in the process of doing that, they got back to us that the organizational policy will not allow them to purchase a flight ticket for us. That instead, we should go and search for the flight tickets and send them the costs, and they'll send us the money. So as a smart, let me say, smart Nigerian guys who knows that he doesn't have any option, I searched online and gave them a ticket price in dollars, and they sent me the money in dollars. And I had the option of paying for my flight ticket, I think, in dollars also. But no, I paid through a Nigerian booking agent, and I paid for the flight ticket in Naira. So I went and converted it, and I paid in Naira. And I was able to save up enough money from that dollar to actually pay, supplements. Let's say supplement. I can't use the word supplement because it covered more than 60% of my accommodation fee. So I was able to, get enough to actually pay for my accommodation in America from my flight tickets just by converting, the money using the BDC, Bureau de Change. So what am I trying to actually pull out here is that always be ready to challenge the normal. The lady told me that the organization does not pay for flight ticket. And when we got to the World Bank, Ibrahim had a conversation with our coordinator. We've had a conversation with our coordinator, but Ibrahim had a personal conversation with the coordinator, and the coordinator was like, the reason they decided to start paying they paid for everyone in the cohort their flight tickets. And the reason they did so was because of us. And according to what the lady told Ibrahim, that she was surprised that we're even able to, pass through the whole process of the application and actually, get in the background check and everything and, actually make it to the US. So we were able to not just help ourselves, but also help other people who might not, be in that position to actually speak out. So just from speaking out and being courageous enough to challenge the normal, we're able to, carve a niche, not just for ourselves, but also help others. So some of you might want to apply to an opportunity and you'd be like, this is the rule of law, this is the rules. Somebody will tell you the rules are meant to be breaking sometimes. So someone will tell you that this is the rules, we can't do it except this particular way. Sometimes, I'm not saying all the time, but it's always, good to give it a try. It's always good to try to challenge the normal. Anything can happen. And you might be lucky enough, just like I was lucky, or just like we were lucky during the World Bank internship. So last but not the least, don't give up. Don't give up. So don't say because you have applied and you've gotten tons of rejection letters, you're going to give up. I met someone at the World Bank. I'm going to be brief with this. I met someone at the World Bank because of time. Okay. I met someone at the World Bank, and this person is actually the lead financial specialist for the East and Asian market, I think. He's a Nigerian, and he's the head of Islamic finance, and he's a Christian also. So there's another lesson to actually pick from this, but I'm not going to go in depth into that. He was the lead financial analyst for the East and I think Asian markets, Asian market and the Asian and American market. I can't really remember exactly. So we had this conversation with him, and he told us a bit of his story about how he got to how he got a master's scholarship, got a PhD scholarship, and eventually came to the World Bank. And his story was really inspiring because he told us about during their time, he finished from, I think, OAU. Was it OAU or Unibadan? He said during their time, they didn't have the internet to even apply for opportunities. He had to write letters and mail these letters to universities he's applying to. And he kept on doing that for more than, almost 3 years, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Kept on doing that, kept on doing that, kept on doing that. People were like, he was spending almost a huge percentage of his salary doing that, just applying, sending, keep on sending. He kept on receiving rejection mails, but that didn't deter him. He kept on making the moves until he eventually got, invited to, it was either Oxford or one of the top universities in UK. I can't remember the exact university, but he kept on doing that until he eventually, gets the opportunity to be admitted. And even when he got the opportunity to be admitted, something came up and he had to figure out another way. So whatever the case, don't give up. Keep on applying. You might be surmounted with challenges, but as long as you keep on, pushing, keep on giving in your best, you'll be able to, surmount those challenges. As they will usually tell you, as our Nigerian guys will tell you, when we catch crews, sometimes they'll be like, no matter the situation, don't forget to eat. Even though you have a heartbreak, eat first. So whatever happens, whatever application rejections you might have received, just keep on pushing, because that pushing you're pushing is like you're eating. And if you don't keep on pushing, you will not survive it. You keep on being weighed down by these rejection letters. So whatever rejection letter you get, keep on pushing. And I think this brings us to the end of the whole internship, of how to spot internships and also how to grab internships. I try to make this as relatable as possible using my own personal experience. And I really, really hope that you guys found this insightful and really helpful in your future applications as you go on with your journey. And I think I would like to bring the curtain to an end now at this juncture. Thank you very much for listening. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to take them now.
Wow, thank you so much, Mr. Lukman. My daughter is full now. Thank you so much. This has been a very, very interesting session, and I've learned so much from it. Before I go on to ask my own questions, because I have a couple, because I can see a lot of people super excited and they can't wait to ask you questions. So I'll let people ask you questions and then I'll go on after them. So do we have any questions? Yeah. Nora is asking, can I send my CV for review? All right, I can see.
Sure, Nora. I can find the time to actually help you with it.
All right, go on, guys. Ask your questions.
Okay, can I just say something? Thank you so much, Lukman, for this session. Can you guys hear me, please?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you so much, Lukman, for this session. And something that just struck me from what you said was the point where you mentioned always challenge the norm. And struck me because this happened to me of recent, whereby I got an opportunity as well. And while I was actually applying for the opportunity, I wasn't even thinking of the distance from where I stay to where that opportunity is. You know, when you just send out applications and then all of a sudden you get that opportunity and then you're thinking, okay, how do I relocate to this place? And on a normal day, no company will pay for your relocation fee because they expected to have thought about it. But while having a conversation with them, I decided to challenge the authority, like you said, and I told them that it's a long distance. Is it possible that they can, support me with my relocation? And, after them going back and front on it, and they came back and they said they will pay for every expenses for my relocation. So if I didn't challenge it, that the authority, like you just said, it would have just been me struggling to have to, pay for my relocation and all that. So yeah, that really actually struck a chord with me. Thank you very much for that advice.
Thank you, Dr. Chimeke, for sharing.
Queen, you had your hand raised.
Yes, please. Thank you so much, Lukman, for your presentation. I really enjoyed every part of it. And I really like the parts where you're like, we should stop procrastinating, because sometimes you find yourself with a lot of opportunities and you're like, okay, let me apply today, tomorrow, and before you know, the deadline is already over. You're like, oh my God, how did I miss this? So my question is, I also I feel like sometimes with internship, let's say you're in a particular field, sometimes you can actually get internship opportunities that are not necessarily related to like the field you actually are or belong to. And I realized that with that, because personally, like with CVs, they're just like, curated for a particular niche, or like how your expertise falls within a particular line. So now, how do you like juggle, like, let's imagine you're applying to a lot of companies, and then these companies have different roles. This company A is talking about project management. This company is talking about maybe finance. That company is talking about like maybe technology. How would you have to create a different CV for like all these different companies? And what do you think about having like a semi-general CV? I like your input on that.
Okay, so I think I can speak specifically to this because I had this experience. Like I'm not into, let's say, food science. I'm not into, let's say, agriculture, but I was a volunteer for Global Landscape Forum at some point. And one thing we actually did, the theme of the discussion, it was an event that held, I think, was it June 2020, GLF Landscape Forum Conference. And I had to like partake in stuff that had to do with agriculture. The theme of the discussion for that particular program was food in times of crisis. And it might look as if, yeah, what am I doing? I volunteered not knowing, in depth about what the whole program was all about, because I needed volunteering, experience. So when I got in there and I noticed, they were discussing agriculture, they were discussing, food in times of crisis, I still, tried to, still continue with the volunteering role and the opportunity. And I later figured out that there's a separate track for finance and value chain. So they didn't just look at food in times of crisis. They look at how people can raise finance to actually create a sustainable value chain to actually, help reduce the impact of, food insecurity especially during the, COVID-19 pandemic period. So I had this experience, and I've almost, forgotten about this experience. But recently, while applying to IMF Youth Fellowship Program, the whole theme of the discussions was related to, I think finance was related to finance, food insecurity, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, food insecurity, or agriculture to be specific, and also one other particular sector. So because of this, my experience in, interning with, I'm volunteering with GLF using the team food in times of crisis, I was able to speak specifically to what IMF Youth Fellowship needed for that particular role. So sometimes you might, engage in opportunities that you feel might not be relevant, but opportunities are not necessarily job applications. They're not necessarily career related. They might be academic opportunities, and people want to see how you have, what you have done with your time, how you have contributed to the development of different sectors. Let's assume, for instance, you want to go into consulting. Consulting is not specific. There is health consulting. There is, let's say, agricultural consulting. There is, different branches in consulting. So if you want to go into consulting, they need people who are diverse. And most times they usually, you notice in these job descriptions that they want people who have, they are not being specific about people maybe studying a particular course. They want diverse people with diverse experiences. So I think you should pay more attention to the job descriptions, maybe what you have done in a particular job role that you might have, experience that you have. So let's assume, for instance, you were a program, let's say, committee manager for, let's say, Learn and Play, for instance. It's a foundation, for instance, Learn and Play. And what you did there was to organize programs that was, to help provide literacy books or literature books to students, to children. But you're able to highlight what you've done under that particular role as a program committee chairman or program committee manager. You might, be applying for a role in UN, for instance, as, let's say, a program committee manager for maybe, let's say, fundraising for people in Borno State, for instance, people who are suffering, internally displaced persons. The experiences, the highlighted experiences you have for that role, they might not necessarily look at the company, but the fact that you've done this and you've done that, and they need someone with similar experiences, someone who has done similar activities in the past, I feel it will really, really help you in other job applications. And you mentioned aspect of having, was it semi, can you come again with that statement, Burja? You mentioned something about semi CV. Okay, it seems Murja is not here. But you can have.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I muted myself. I understand this better. Thank you.
Okay. All right. You mentioned something about a semi CV. So I don't know if you can. Was it a semi CV you said? I didn't get the statement well. Okay, I think I might have answered that question in the process. Thank you.
Yeah. So with a semi CV, like you see, like let's say for example, I have like a strong project management background, and I'm probably applying to like a food science company, for example. I'm asking, do I have to really create another brand new CV, like, and curate my skills towards that food science company's job description? That's what I'm asking. Or I could just make my CV in such a way that I could just apply to a lot of companies. It's a little bit controversial for me, because sometimes you want to do quantity, but sometimes you have to think of the quality of what you're actually applying for.
Yeah, you can modify the CV. And what I usually do is to go to the job description, look at the requirements, look at the functions of that job description. Let's assume your daily responsibility is to prepare research reports, and your daily responsibility is to actually, calculate bonds, or it has to do with calculations. You can look at those, let's say features in your own CV that does not match with what is required by the job role. Then you can take them out. Then look at the job description or the job role and look for things in that job description that you might have done in the past. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the same field, but look at the job description, look at the functions, look at the rules, look at things that you might have done in the past that can actually still play a significant role to you being selected in the other job role. And you can single those experiences out and impute them into your CV and apply to that opportunity. But one thing I just want you to take note is to always take note of the job description, the job functions. When you know the job functions, you will know what you need to include in your CV and what you need to take out. So you don't want to put things in the job description that are not relevant, or things that are totally irrelevant to that role. So just ensure that you read the job description well, pick out things you feel relate to what you've done in the past, modify it, then include it in your CV. And I think it solves the issue.
All right, thank you. I'll apply that better on.
Right,
thank you.
Thank you very much, Lukman. Right, this is a follow-up question, so let me just quickly ask this one as well. So when you are applying as an intern, I want to know, is there a particular, what is required from an intern to be successful? Can you run us through your typical interview day? What do you focus on, when you are going for an internship interview, when you've applied and you've gotten to the interview stage? What do you focus on based on what you feel interns are required to have, the qualities they want to see from that interview for you to be successful at that interview?
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Yusuf. So one thing I usually do, I don't know if other people do that, but one thing I usually do is to go on Glassdoor and search about that particular company. So most times when I attend these job interviews, they want to know how much you know about the company. They want to know if you know so much about the company that you're convinced enough that the job descriptions or the nature of the job aligns with your own personal goals and your own personal ambitions. So one thing I usually do is to go on Glassdoor, look at reviews, look at what people are saying about the company, look at what's, if you go on Glassdoor, for instance, it's a job review site. It shows you people talk about their experiences working in that particular company. People talk about how the pay is. People talk about the job, let's say the lifestyle in that particular company. So I want to know a lot about that company. And one tool I usually use to do that is Glassdoor. So I can go on Glassdoor. I think there's another review site, but I'm not so familiar with the name. But I'm very familiar with Glassdoor because I use Glassdoor a lot. Another website I do go on to actually learn about that company or to learn about a specific role, let's say for an investment banking analyst, and I want to know, because not everything you find on the job description, and you want to be able to answer questions during these interviews. There might be questions you are not expecting or you might have not come across while doing your research. But when you listen to people, the real experiences or the real life experiences of people, then you'll be able to know how best to approach that question. You might be going to a company whereby they have a culture that you don't talk to the bosses anyhow, or you are not allowed to come up with your own unique ideas. So these are things you might want to look out for. But how can you know those things? It's by listening or learning from the experiences of people. And you can do that apart from Glassdoor. One platform I do use is Quora, Quora.com. So Quora.com is a platform whereby people ask questions and random people give answers to that particular question. So you go on Quora, maybe you ask them, what is the job life like in, let's say, Bofa, for instance. You go type it on Quora, search it on Quora, you find a lot of people, ex-bankers, people who don't have any affiliations with that company again. So they will not be shy to tell you the shit, sorry for using the word, the shits or whatever that might have happened in that particular company. They will not be, they will not feel scared to tell you about in depth about what happens in that company. So one thing I usually do just to build my confidence, to actually make me know a lot about the company, is to go on Quora to read about that role, read about the company, go to Glassdoor, do my research. Then also go to the company's website, read about that particular department I'm applying to, read about what this company do. Sometimes I usually practice, let's say, 1 day or 2 days to that job interview. And it's not like I'm being on serious, but all I want to do is to familiarize myself with what happens in that company. So I might just dedicate those 2 days to visiting the company's website, to searching things about the company, to searching things about the job role. I'm a very bad crammer. Those people know me, know that I find it very hard to cram. I find it hard to memorize. So, but I just look at these things. I'm able to picture these things in my brain. It's just like you wanting to go to America, for instance, and you decide to go on YouTube and you start watching videos about America. And when you're watching these videos, somebody might come up to you tomorrow and they'll be surprised you know a lot about America. I do watch a lot of travel videos most times. And when I went to America, I was able to talk much about America, and they were surprised like how I was able to know much about them. So the essence of actually, going to this, reading about these companies, not necessarily cram. I don't mean you should cram. You should write down things and store it on your head because you might forget, and that would be a big turn off when you're in the interview. But you can actually familiarize yourself with that company, search about the company, search about the role, read a lot of random stuffs on Google. Google is your friend. Go there, search about it. Read a lot about that role, read a lot about the company. Just make it I don't know how to put it, soak yourself in that company so that when you go, soak yourself in their latest trends, what might have happened recently in that company. So that when you go to the interview, I think for me, over time, what I've realized is that what matters most in interviews is the confidence. When you're confident enough to actually speak about what you believe in, people want to know that this guy actually believes in what he speaks in. He's applying to this company not because he wants to apply to this company, but he's really convinced that he's qualified and he's willing to go into that company. So that is where the fake life, have to come in. Not at the stage where you have not gotten an interview or you've not gotten an internship opportunity. But fake life will come in when you act as if you've been studying that company for years. I'm going to tell you a little secret. And I'm not supposed to say this here, but I'm going to tell you a little secret. 2021, when I won the Daytopia, championship, the Daytopia presentation challenge, the business challenge I presented was a business idea of my lecturer. And people do call me Tomato now, and I'll tell you a little bit about the story. So my lecturer was teaching us, my entrepreneurship lecturer in my diploma days was teaching us about entrepreneurship, and he talked about his business idea, which took him abroad, I think Japan, a tomato business, grounded powdered tomato business and stuff. He talked about it in the class. And because I'm the type that don't cram, I only listen and just absorb. I absorbed everything he said that day, not necessarily in details, but I absorbed it. So when it came to a time and I was about selecting the business idea I wanted to, present on the Daytopia channel, I quickly remembered that my lecturer talked about tomato powder. And what did I do? I used about 3 days. We had 1 week to prepare. So I used about, I think, 3 days to actually soak myself, to learn a lot about what it takes, where tomato drying originates, what are the different tools we might need for tomato drying. I went as far as researching on, different container sizes. I went on alibaba.com, ali.com, express.com to actually look at the price of the containers. I looked for a lot of things just to know a lot about that business. And Saridwan, if Saridwan is here, you can remember he said something. He said, Lukman, it's like you've been planning about this business idea for a long time. And when he said this, I laughed in my mind because I did that preparation in just 3 days. And I ended up probably winning. And there are people there who probably had a business idea right from time, but but in essence, what I'm trying to say is that confidence really matters a lot. And how will you be confident? You can be confident when you have soaked yourself, you've absorbed, you've synced yourself inside that company to learn about that company, to learn about that job role. You don't have to cram, but familiarize yourself with it. And when you get to the interview, trust me, you will naturally flow if you know what you're doing. Definitely you flow. And the flow is what matters. And where your research will come in is when maybe, one thing about soaking yourself, absorbing yourself with stuff is that when speaking during the interview, you'll be able to remember some key details, which maybe let's assume you cram that detail, you will not remember it. But the fact that you didn't cram it, you just absorbed yourself in it. When you're talking, you might remember that, Goldman Sachs issued an IPO of $4 billion in 2021. And this is because when you were reading about it, you might not know unconsciously, your eyes grabbed that particular figure. But make sure you're sure about what you're saying. Your eyes grab that particular figure and you will just go with the flow. You just mention the figure and people will be like, wow, this guy knows a lot about that company. But it's something you did in 2 days. So this can really help trying to soak yourself, trying to absorb yourself, learn as much as possible about the company. If you are not the type that is good at cramming, I won't advise you to cram, but just ensure that you familiarize yourself with everything that has to do with that company. The key details, most especially, key things that they might ask you in the interview, just familiarize yourself with it. And they will have no option except maybe they don't need you, but they'll have no option than to pick you.
Thank you so much, Lukman, for that. Okay, let's just quickly move on to the next person. Mubarak Inyanda, do you still have your question? Because I saw you raised your hand.
Yes, I still do.
Okay, go on.
Okay, I'm actually trying to get something real straight because I've been trying to work on my CV of recent. So I actually want to ask, let's say for instance, I'm trying to apply for an investment banking role.
Yeah.
In for instance. So how best do you think I could actually tailor my experience to actually give me some sort of, should I say, better score of getting the offer?
Okay, so I'm going to speak from my experience with Bank of America. I think was in 2021, I got to the second to the last stage of the interview for BOFA. I had a telephone interview, but I couldn't make it to the in-person or the last stage, actually. So what actually helped is that apart from tailoring your CV, and for you to actually tailor your CV, you need to be prepared. So that is the essence of you developing yourself consistently. So you need to have stuff to put in your CV. You need to have stuff to talk about on your cover letter. So when you have things to talk about in your cover letter, when you have things to talk about in your CV, that's the first step. And usually it's like a system or a machine that actually goes through your CV and review them. So most times randomly people get invited for, higher view interviews, and, you don't have to do any magic to actually get invited for higher view interviews. So, but what will actually play well in your CV is what you have done in the past. And I think there's no rocket science to that, Mubarak. It's just you being able to write, to know what you have on your CV. I'm not saying you should go and pick up things that you didn't do, but the things you've done, know how to tell this story well on your CV, know how to tell this story well on your cover letter. And you can do that using different different resources online on how to prepare a best CV, how to craft a best CV. And while doing that, you have to look at the job description of that particular role. If you're applying to global market, if you're applying to investment banking, look at the job description of that role in that company. Then when talking about your experience, let's say in your cover letter, you can tell them that let's assume you participated in the CFA research, for instance. You tell them in the course of participating for the CFA research, we conducted deep financial analysis using this particular Monte Carlo analysis model. You use this, you use that. You talk about these things because this is what the job requires. So let's assume you did a stock pitch, and let's say you're applying to a global research role. You can tell them about the research activity you've done in your stock pitch challenge that you did. So these are things. So that's the essence of you to consistently. If you don't consistently develop yourself, you won't have anything to put in your CV. You won't have anything to talk about in your cover letter. So that's the essence of actually developing yourself. So apart from developing yourself, because your CVs, your cover letters can actually go through the job system, scale through, and you get invited to interviews. In fact, for BOFA, you get invited immediately you apply. You don't even need to go through your CV. So how can you scale through the higher view interview? So all of these things are things that, I used to say it's not a rocket science, even though I might not be able to, I've not gotten an internship with, maybe apart from the World Bank and some international organizations I've worked with, maybe with some of the firms I'm aspiring to work with, let's say BOFA, Goldman Sachs, I've not gotten an internship with them, but I've been able to study the process. And I started by going to study how higher view works. I watched YouTube videos on how the algorithms and higher view works. So not necessarily all the time the system, real people watch what you do on your higher view video interview. Sometimes the algorithms watch your body language. There are some key details that these algorithms look at. When you face your camera, it looks at your eye contact. It looks at the words you mentioned. So maybe the role is a research role and they want you to mention that you've done research. So maybe in the course of your conversation, the higher view might be picking out key details on what you've said. Maybe research. How many times did this guy mention research? I'm not saying you should be mentioning research your whole interview. How many times this guy mentioned research? It will rank it 5 times. How many times this guy talk about presentation? 5 times, based on the job requirements of that role. So after doing that, what the higher view does is to rank these candidates. So the interviewer, the company might not even go through your CV. They might not even go through your whatsoever you might have done. Higher view will rank these candidates for them, maybe top 100, top 1,000, top 2,000. And these are the 2,000 people that will get a telephone interview call or whatsoever process might be the next stage. So you have to understand the process that company goes through while conducting the recruitment process. I usually used to say a particular quote, but I'm not going to say it's a good quote because I don't want people to use it all the time. I usually used to say intelligence is the ability of you combining the importance of good and bad. So not all the time you have to be able to, sometimes you can cut corners, but you have to do that very wisely. That is working smart. You can cut corners and you can do that by actually studying. And I wouldn't really call it cutting corners because you're actually studying the process of that particular process. And you're trying to see how you can reduce the effort you're going to put in it to get the maximum results, which is the 80-20 rule. If for those of you who are familiar with those rules, 20% efforts actually yield 80% result. So you can actually study these processes And when you study these processes, you know how best to approach them with minimum effort. So I studied higher view. I know what higher view wants, and I did that. And that was how I scaled through my higher view interview for Bank of America. And then it got to the telephone interview stage. That was the first time I had my telephone interview, investment banking interview. So I've not had that opportunity to do that except to my 100 level where I totally, I don't want to use the word messed up, but I messed up. So in this Bank of America telephone interview, I actually did well, but it was obvious that I crammed most of the things because when the interviewer asked me a question, I have to think about it. And also I was not so in depth about the technical analysis. So you have to be very careful about what you're putting on your CV also. That is why I said don't fake it, be yourself. Because when you put in things on your CV that you're not well knowledgeable about, or you said I'm well versed in financial modeling, and you're talking to guys who have had, let's say, a minimum of 2, 3, 5 years of experience working in that particular role, and you're telling your CV reads you're well versed, and they ask you a simple question or let's say an average question, you're unable to answer it, then it's a problem. So you have to be yourself, let them know who you are. They might just pick you because, not because you know it all, but because you have put in so much effort towards, learning, and you are open to learning. And when the interviewer, you might have situations whereby you feel you're very correct about a particular question that you were being asked, and the interviewer is telling you, no, this is how it works, and you're trying to, maybe you've gotten to that confidence level where you feel like you know it all, and you're trying to tell him that no, that's like a first turn off. That's to show that you are not open to learning. So even though you know you're wrong, you're right, and the interviewer is trying to bring in something new, be humble enough to actually listen to what that person has to say, what that interviewer have to say. So be prepared for the interview, study the process. When you get to a telephone interview, make sure you do your research well. No, most times telephone interview is usually technical. So make sure you're well versed in technicals and watch what you say, because they pick questions from what people tell them. So when you're talking and you feel you've crammed whatever you've crammed your experience, you're very fluent and you're just talking and you are not sure. What I usually do now is that whatever I'm going to say, I have to make sure that if any question should come from that thing I have said, it should be something I'm able to answer. Don't be so fluent with your grammar or be like, let's say, William Shakespeare, but when you're being asked to explain what you are saying, then you are left dumbfounded. So you have to be very, very careful about those details. So those are the key things, to actually scale through whatever interview, not specific to Bank of America or to investment banking analysis. So you have to be prepared, know what your CV is saying, know what your cover letter is talking about, and definitely success is guaranteed, even though not immediately.
All right. Thank you very much, Lukman, for that. One thing you said that is really important is that you need to develop yourself, because if you don't, there will be nothing to put on your CV. There'll be nothing to really make you sell yourself even better. So it is very important that you don't just rely on your certificate. At this day and age, you can't just say, okay, I'm going to uni and then that's it. What did you actually do while studying in the university? What opportunities did you take advantage of? How did you volunteer? Internships. These are the things that are very, very important. You can't just come out at the end of your 4 years and say, well, this is the certificate. No, you need to do more these days in order to be able to compete in the job market. Well, Umar is asking, before I go to Dr. Adejumoke that has a hand raised, Umar is asking a question. I know experience plays a lot when applying for opportunities, but is there a level playing field for internship roles between non-experienced and experienced candidates?
Okay, thank you very much, Umar, for that question. And if you are the type that usually applies to internship opportunities, you realize that some of these recruiters usually specify in their job description they'll specify previous experience is necessary or previous experience not necessary. So there is a level playing ground to some certain extent, but not all the time. So I'm going to be very factual about this. And the reason why I said not all the time is because definitely, someone who has been putting in hard work, let's say for a number of years, for instance, and you started today, definitely, most likely you guys are not going to be in the same level. I'm not saying you will not be able to, apply for opportunities that person is applying to, but the person will definitely have an edge over you for some roles. That person might have an edge over you. But this is where you being able to be yourself, you being able to tell your story well, you being able to, show that even though you don't have a previous experience, you're really, really willing to learn. And just like I've emphasized before, just like Dr. Yusuf had emphasized before, that you need something to show. Whatever you're applying for, you need something to show. You need something to convince someone. You don't expect me not to have any single experience, for instance, and I want to go and apply for, let's say, an investment banking analyst role, and I don't have any experience, not even in agriculture, not in health education, not anywhere. I just want to go and apply. How would that work? That won't work, because I need to have something. So even though, as let's say, I have been working in the agricultural sector for a while, and I want to apply for investment banking roles, if you go to investment banking, there's what they call the general groups, the general investment banking group, and there's the product specific groups where you see people working for different industries. Some are working for health, some are working for, different industries. So even with your knowledge of agriculture, all you have to do is to tell them, they want to see if you work hard, if you worked hard in your previous role, you can work hard in this company. Just like university, for instance, when you want to apply for some opportunities of roles in Nigeria, they will tell you if you don't have a first class, if you don't have a second class upper, if you don't have a third class, for instance, you can apply to this role. Why are they saying so? Not because you have opportunity for that particular job opportunity, but because you have demonstrated using your academics that you are able to, concentrate, you're able to be serious, you're able to bring out something good from what you've done with your academics. So they expect that you replicate that same effort in the current job role that you're working in. So there is a level playing ground, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't have any experience. There's a level playing ground, but you need to be able to tell your story. If you're coming from the field of agriculture, why do you want to work with as an investment banker? You can tell them, yes, I'm looking at the deficit in the agricultural sector in Africa, for instance. Africa is 39% of the African population is currently witnessing famine. And I believe that there's a deficit gap of, let's say, $2 trillion to actually finance or to fill in that gap. And I believe that with my knowledge of agriculture, I can come in to, support the bank activities towards solving that problem. So there are lots and numerous ways you can actually, this is just like a mock way of doing this. There are lots and, numerous ways you can actually approach a job role from your own perspective. So there's a level playing ground, but you have to be good at telling your story. And that is why you need to know a lot about that company, know a lot about the job role, so that you'll be able to relate it to whatever experience you've had, and you will use that as your passport into the company.
Fantastic.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much, Lukman. I don't want this to end. So, Dr. Adejumoke, you have a question.
Yes, I do have a question. So my question is, how can people because I believe that there's few people like me who does not really have much of a social media imprint. People that are not on LinkedIn, they are not on Facebook. They might be on Facebook or on LinkedIn, but they are not actually very active. Don't use this platform that well. How can they harness this opportunity without having to change who they are or change their lifestyle as well? Because I was having a conversation with Dewale on this when he keeps saying that you have to put yourself out there, you have to be on these platforms. But what if that's not you? How can I still get access to these opportunities without being on those platforms?
Yeah, so I also started using social media, I think was it 2021. I've not been on, social media, on LinkedIn to be specific, sorry. I've not been on LinkedIn until 2021. And for me, I feel like even though you don't have to always, it's good to actually sell yourself. And I do that a lot among my peers. I think maybe I'm the one that is overdoing, because I usually post a lot about what I do on LinkedIn. But I still feel some people do reach out to people individually. So you can still be on LinkedIn. LinkedIn, there are different ways of actually getting opportunities. One is through you searching. One way is also through people finding you. So the only essence of you selling yourself on LinkedIn or social media, for instance, is to enable people find you. So that is the main essence. But on LinkedIn, if you have, let's say, on your experience, you have all your achievements listed on your experience, your dashboard, you have what you've done, what you've achieved, all of these, I think it can still work if a recruiter is trying to search. Because when you're searching, when I've tried to study the LinkedIn platform, when someone searches for, let's say, a particular item, maybe you search for, research writing, what LinkedIn does, LinkedIn will go and search for people who are popular on that particular topic, people who have probably spoken about that particular topic a lot, or people who have, let's say, maybe written a lot of articles on that topic, or let's say people who have that, that's, let's say, a phrase, maybe a public researcher on their profile. So that is what LinkedIn does. LinkedIn will help you bring out those people. So there are different ways. It all depends on which way you want to follow to get to your own opportunity. Maybe someone might find you. If you're the type that sells yourself a lot, you also open a new door for people to find you. But when LinkedIn posts their jobs, for instance, they don't post it for only people who post a lot on LinkedIn. Anyone can actually approach these opportunities. And you might have a very, very superb CV that someone who is even on LinkedIn that posts a lot, talks a lot, does not have. I recently had this experience. I saw a lot of people on LinkedIn who do post a lot on LinkedIn. They come and, I'm not trying to hit or target anyone at the moment, but people do post a lot about, let's say, motivations, about how to do this, how to do that, while they themselves are not even doing any of these things. But they just come there to talk about how to do these things. So some people talk a lot on social media. Some people have that social media presence, but they don't really have that value to back it up. So they might go into these companies or they might get the interviews, and at the end of the day, the interviewer will be disappointed. But I feel that's being, very, let's say, being very open on social media, being very outspoken on social media is an added advantage. But it just takes, let's say, a specific percentage, a specific part of the pie. The bulk of the pie rests on your capabilities. The bulk of the pie rests on how you're able to sell yourself, your confidence whenever you get invited for interviews, your CVs, what you've done. But I feel it's good to have a social media presence just to leverage the whole picture. But not having a social media presence doesn't stop you from applying to job, going to search the LinkedIn, apply for jobs, reach out to people via their, comment on people's posts. If maybe someone you're interested in, comment on their post. Or let's say reach out to them via email, message them, tell them that you're interested in this, you're interested in that. I feel there are numerous ways you can actually approach these opportunities. So not having social media presence is not a disadvantage, but having it is an advantage. To my own opinion, maybe someone else might have, different perspective to that. Thank you for the question.
All right, thank you, Lukman. We are almost very close to the end. So we have a question from Abdulrazak. He's asking, what are the challenges you faced during your internship with different firms? And I know you have a lot. So
Yeah.
how did you overcome these challenges?
Okay. So I must start by saying that it's not easy. It's not easy. At some points, 2021, and the reason why I say it's not easy because especially at that stage where I'm still grinding, but especially at that stage where you're at the start of your grind, then you have to do a lot of things. You just have to be, you have to be a jack. You just have to be a jack, or let's say you have to be a camel at that time, because you have to try to convince people that you're good at doing a particular thing. And at some point, I was interning with 3 firms. I was interning with the banking offer, which was based in New York, as an M&A content creator, and it was an unpaid role. I was interning with venture with MZ Africa as a venture finance analyst. I was interning with Dream VC Africa, and at later onwards, I interned with ARM, and I did this within like I think 6 months or 7 months. When I was interning with the banking offer, one of the challenge I encountered was time zone difference, and that is if you're interning with international firms. Their day in America starts by, let's say 9 o'clock, and that 9 o'clock is around 3 o'clock here in Nigeria. So I have to like adapt to that changes in time zone. Also, communication issues, like being able to communicate in a way that these guys will actually understand you, because I think the world today is going global. The world today is going global, and you don't have to limit yourself to maybe the way we communicate in Nigeria, for instance. You have to be open to learn, let's say, a standard way of communication. You have to be able to understand what hurts people. You have to be able to understand that someone is bearing a he. Someone who looks like a he might not be a he, but might be a she. So you have to be aware of those things, so that when you are interacting with people from different countries, people from different backgrounds, you ensure that you don't hurt, or you don't go against, or you don't trample upon their, basic or fundamental rights. So this is one challenge I had to, learn how to communicate with people from different countries. Sometimes I might say a word, and I'll try to read their facial expression. If I notice that their eyes are going like this, then I'll quickly change how I communicate with them to ensure that I understand my mode of communication. So one of the challenges I had was time zone difference, which I had to, I have to sacrifice. Basically, I had to sacrifice. And at some points, working with 3 different firms, it was really complicated, because when one of the job is ending, another one is coming in, and let's say the third one is, let's say I've worked with a Nigerian. When I was working with ARM, I worked like, let's say from 9 to 2 o'clock. And by 3 o'clock, I'm already working with MZ Africa. That was really, really challenging. So sometimes you being with your family, you staying with your family, I know the type of troubles you might encounter. Your parents might be like, yeah, Lukman, you're always being on your computer. I've had that a lot. Then when I go home, they'll be like, you're always on your system, you're always on your phone, stuff like that. People will, or you might not even have time to interact with your family members. Sometimes you're trying to tell them, my sister will come, I want to talk to me, and maybe I'm having a Zoom call, and she'll just come and stick her head on that call, trying to disturb me, and trying to explain to her that I'm busy, and tomorrow she wants to do it again and you'll be busy. So these are some of the challenges you might likely encounter when you're actually, making that move to actually learn to upskill yourself and learn a lot of things. So those are some of the challenges I encountered. And when I let me speak specifically to my challenges in the US. One challenge I had while interning with the World Bank is the fact that some of you might look at me as if I'm outspoken, but I'm not really that outspoken per se. When I found myself in the US, people were really, really, really outspoken. Let me say 101% outspoken. Like, they will ask you about things that ordinarily you'll be like, why is this guy asking me this question? So they always have a question to ask you, the white guy specifically. So they'll ask you a lot of questions, ask you this, ask you that, and you have to learn to interact. You have to learn to be able to speak even when you're not prepared. So the fact that I need to learn how to, communicate with people, how to build interpersonal relationship. If you're the type that you're an introvert, that is depending on how far you want to go. I'm not saying it's a must, but if you want to build relationships with people, which is very relevant, you have to learn how to communicate. And that was a challenge for me, because I might meet you today and we might be in the room and we might sit for a whole day and I won't speak to you. But when I got to America, I knew that these things has to change, because You just have to speak. You have to communicate. They'll ask you questions, random questions. They'll ask you, what is fun about you? I asked this question when I was having a call with some of members in the investment society, and they were like, some of them were like, why is this guy asking me these questions? But these are like icebreakers, like they call it, and they are really, really important because they help you build that communication. They help you get to know people the more. So communication was a big challenge for me.
It was fun.
And being able to actually ask questions, I think no question is dumb. Like whenever you are in internship where you're interning with an organization, that is why you're an intern. That is why you're an intern, because they don't expect you to be, they are not hiring an expert. If they want to hire an expert, they know where to get an expert and they know how much to pay an expert. So you as an intern going to an organization, take it as an opportunity that you have to learn. You just be open-minded, be open to ask questions. When I was interning specifically, I was interning at the Treasury Asset Management Division, and the person that was my mentor was a professor in New York University Business School, and he lectures PhD and MBA students. And he was taking me through what did they call this workshop that they did on RAMP, which is Reserve Advisory and Management Reserve Advisory Management Program, which is for like clients, countries, countries who want to save money with the World Bank, wants to like invest money through the World Bank, maybe in platforms they ordinarily won't have access to. So he took me through all of these workshop, and when he took me through this workshop, he was asking me questions in between. He'll be like, Lukman, he took me through this, let's say in the start of the presentation, and in the middle, he asked me this question, and maybe I've forgotten. Instead of saying, sometimes I'll say some things that I don't know, I'm not sure of, and he'll just do a face like this, like, no, come on. He will now tell me the answer. But I got to realize that he now told me that if I don't understand a particular stuff, I should feel free to, talk about it. That he even told me that some people within that team don't even know about this particular workshop that they did. So some people don't even have idea as to what it's all about, because that's not their field. So me coming in as an intern, it's not expected for me to know a lot. He specifically told me that and encouraged me that I should ask questions. And he was always sending me documents to read, ask questions. And I think that is really important. So you shouldn't be shy to ask questions, because you are an intern. You are an intern, you're just a mere intern. So you have to ask questions. Nobody expects you to be super good. Nobody expects you to be an expert. Ask questions. So that was one of the challenges I had. So just to highlight the challenges, time zone, I had issues of time zone. I had issues of communication, which I learned to work on. I had issues of communication, confidence. I'm telling you this, if you go out there, if you're competing on a global level, the confidence you see from other people is on another level. You see people with superb confidence. Confidence is really important, but also don't overdo whatever you do. Don't overdo, because just do what is required of you. Don't go outside. And I'm saying this because there were some interns while in the World Bank, and I was so surprised that while we were interning, we had interns who always showed that they were so good, even in areas where they were not required to be good. They just want to prove that, wit and skills, that they are, this, they are that, they are this, they are that. You can do that in different ways by being dedicated to the particular job you are given. Don't go out and say maybe you want to impress someone and you're going to do stuff that are not related to what you have been asked to do, and make sure you pay attention to the details of what is required of you. Don't say because you want to impress, you're now going to be doing something else in another different department. This happened while during my internship, and our coordinator had to speak to that intern about it, and he spoke to the intern publicly, and he did it in a cruise way. I didn't know that white people do catch cruise, but that guy actually catch cruise with that guy on that particular day. And also, don't be self-centered. And this is not, I'm not speaking based on my experience, but I'm speaking based on what happened to someone. You're asked to deliver a presentation where you guys worked in a team, and you end up talking so much about yourself. And at the end of the day, the coordinator actually spoke to that he took too much time speaking about how good and how great he is that he forgot to actually talk about other people. So you have to be open-minded. You have to be you have to know what you're doing, and also don't overdo things, but be confident and speak where necessary, speak where you are expected to speak. So I think those are some of the challenges I encountered. And apart from that, I didn't encounter any challenges. And as regards asking questions and being able to speak up, I almost everyone on my team were Christians in at the World Bank, and I had to go and pray within the prayer period. And I actually took excuse to go and pray at the mosque, and they were actually open to oh, you can go, you can do this, you can do that. So you just have to actually when you have something within you, try to learn to say it out. And at the end of my internship, after my boss told me to learn to speak out, one thing my boss credited me for was that he liked the fact that I was really, I was open, I was able to communicate, and he was able to understand me perfectly. And he really wishes me well. He even gave me his personal contacts and personal details and stuff like that. So this goes a long way to show you why you need to learn how to communicate. And this might require you to even to go outside your comfort zone. Most times I'm not like too much of a social person, but I had to go on a coffee break with him. I had to go and take, lemonade with him and stuff. And in the process, we interact, we communicate. So this is the process of building relationships, and you just have to be open to it. Interact with people, speak when necessary, and try to be open-minded. I hope I didn't say too much.
Not at all. In fact, thank you so much. You've covered everything. So that will be the last question. Just one final one before we head out. So I know you've applied for different internship opportunities, and you've been able to grab them as well. So can you tell us the difference between the international ones and the Nigerian internship opportunities? So with regards to the application process and the selection process, so are there any main differences between, what you need to know when applying for global opportunities and then what you need to know when it's just Nigeria?
Okay, so I wouldn't say there are much differences, except in situations like some specific companies, like most of these private investment banks, these large private investment banks, whereby you have a lot of thousands of people applying. Then they in order to consistently reduce the amount of candidates in each process, they will make the process much more longer. So that is where you experience situations where you have to go through sometimes 2 interviews. That is for international roles, now to be specific. You have to undergo, let's say, 1, 2, 3 interviews before actually getting the offer. But my experience is applying for Nigerian roles. Let's say I'm going to be very realistic with this. I would say it's pretty much easier. And the reason why I'm saying so is because most Nigerian youths are now looking outside of Nigeria. And most times you see that the competitions is not really intense when you apply for Nigerian roles. But I would just like to highlight this. For international roles, sometimes you might be able to, or let me not go there. I wanted to say that sometimes you might be able to walk away even though you don't have in-depth knowledge about a particular topic when you're undergoing a Nigerian interview and you are speaking so much about it. Reasons why they might still hire you because of when you speak maybe out of point is because they have fewer candidates who are qualified for that particular role. But when you're going for international roles, don't carry the same, let's say, mindset or the same instinct of applying to Nigerian roles. So because you are able to get into a Nigerian firm very much easily, and you think it's a walk in the park and you can actually do that with an international firm, you might be disappointed and you might end up finding out that you're not the Nelson Mandela you think you are. Because when you get into those big companies, you realize that you have thousands of people who are, twice as qualified as you, but I'm not saying that should deter you, that should stop you, but you should be prepared. You should go in with, advisably, I would say you should go in with one mindset of always putting your best feet forward. Whether it's a Nigerian role, whether it's an international role, put your best feet forward. But most times the interviews are usually not so much different. You go through the application process. Sometimes they have an aptitude test. I think some private investment banks, boutique banks like Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, Evercore, and the rest of them, they usually have like some tests. Some of them do have tests. Some of them do not have aptitude tests. Some of them have aptitude tests. So aptitude tests for Nigerian firms differ with aptitude tests for global firms. You have to be very, you have to be aware of that. Aptitude test for Nigerian firms is usually revolves around verbal reasoning and quantitative reasoning. I'm just looking at it from the advanced level, but it's just like verbal reasoning and quantitative reasoning and a bit of logic questions. But when you go to, let's say, global application, global aptitude test, yes, it might come as if it's in a form of verbal reasoning and quantitative reasoning, but they will test your knowledge on real life scenarios. So you have to embody this knowledge of good work ethics. This is why I mentioned that being able to interact is very important, and not just interaction, but being able to interact in a professional setting. I took an interview, an aptitude test recently, and the questions for the verbal reasoning or the verbal interactions was how to respond to questions from your bosses. These are some of the questions I was being asked. Like a boss might ask me, okay, I have this task and maybe somebody in my team is not able to take up this task. Will you be able to help me with that? And they'll give you a scenario that you're also busy. So how are you going to answer these questions? So they are going to ask you, most global firms ask questions which are realistic questions, that is questions that can take real life form. But Nigerian firms is not necessarily realistic questions. They'll ask you random questions about verbal reasoning. Like they might ask you arrange, let's say, SQV in this order and that order. Or if cat is this, if cat is equal to kitten, this might be equal to that. So these are the questions you might encounter in Nigerian interviews, in Nigerian aptitude tests. But just to be on the safer side, I'll advise that you should be well prepared. Whichever interview you're going to, whichever aptitude test you're taking, be well prepared and expect the unexpected. But when it's for global interview, I've told you the format of their verbal reasoning. Their quantitative reasoning questions are most likely related to, like, they'll give you scenarios, let's say a graph or a chart or a table about how much a company has raised, let's say, giving you an instance, how much a company has raised in this particular year, how much turnover was raised in this particular year. So the essence of asking you this question is how fast you're able to think and how analytic you are. So they might ask you that in the year 2021, was the revenue in 2020 greater than the revenue in 2021? This question might look simple, but one thing Nigerians do usually overdo, I'm not being sentimental about mentioning Nigerians, but it's something I know, it's our character. It's that we do overthink things. We overthink issues. Someone might tell you something and someone is already reading a meaning to it. I might tell you that you're looking good and someone might read another meaning to it. So when we bring this attitude most times when we are applying to or when we're taking our test, someone might ask you a very simple question, but you start, maybe the question is from Kaduna to Abuja and you start going to Lagos State. And at the end of the day, you end up missing the way. So you have to be very alert, very objective when answering questions and, don't overthink things, but be very alert and very objective when answering these questions. Before you overthink, look at the simplest or the easiest way of answering the question before you start going complex. You might be well experienced, you might be a guru, but when you're attempting these questions, just take it as if you are a kid or you're a toddler and approach these questions the way they come. So I think those are the key differences. But apart from that, there is no much differences, because I think the last interview I had with a Nigerian firm, they were even asking me similar questions as to, what happened, as to, similar questions that was being asked in international roles. So I think just put your best feet forward and you know what you're doing, and yeah, you won't have we won't have any issue.
All right, thank you so much, man, for today. We spent 2 hours and it's been so interesting. I didn't even know we spent that much time because I really enjoyed every bit of this session today. Thank you so much for all the gems you've shared with us today. And the best part is that it doesn't even apply to only internships, it applies to normal jobs as well, which everyone is interested in. So it's not just internships. So I've learned a lot from this as well. So guys, thank you so much, Lukman, once again. So guys, if you have any other questions, make sure that you join Daytopia, and we have, brilliant minds like this that, we share opportunities every now and then. And, it's good to have people, brilliant minds. It's good to have yourself surrounded by brilliant minds so that, you can forge ahead in life, and develop yourself even further. So make sure, if you're not, I'm guessing most people here are Daytopians. If you're not, make sure you join the Daytopia platform. If you have any other questions, you can reach out to Lukman. So thank you so much, Lukman, for today. We really learned a lot from you. All right, guys. I'll see you guys next week. All right. Have a lovely weekend. Thanks so much, Lukman.
Thank you.
All right then.
All right. Bye-bye, guys. Thank you, Lukman. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.